Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the call. My name is Monty Benin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the AT&T Veterans Employee Resource Group. Thank you for joining our second meeting in the series of interactive gatherings that support AT&T Veterans Initiative of pushing towards the goal of getting veteran suicide to zero. We're glad to present the Mental Health Journey Not Alone call today. This is a 1-hour call, and we have time devoted to your questions and answers following our conversation with AT&T Veterans CEO Jeff Cole and our distinguished panelist Jeremy Curick. We're recording this event so that you and others may watch it or review at a later time. If you do not wish to be a part of this recording, please drop now. We're starting the recording now. Please turn off your video during the presentation to assure good bandwidth and connectivity during the panel discussion. Everyone but the speakers are muted. Please use the question and answer allowed by Zoom during the call or hold your live questions until the call has been opened for everyone's questions and answers. Everyone will remain muted until that time. Your participation is very much requested, and if you have questions or a story you're comfortable with sharing, please do so when appropriate and as time allows. However, due to time constraints, if your question is not addressed during the session, we'll be publishing responses to all questions received by posting them to the Get to Zero site under the Forums section. This is just a few days after Memorial Day, and we want to recognize those that gave everything to allow us the freedoms we enjoy, thank them, their families, and those that served beside them. Okay, let's get started with a special announcement from Jason Moses, Lead Diversity Consultant with AT&T Human Resources. We'll then roll into a discussion between Jeff and Jeremy with a question and answer period to start. Question and answer period following, as time allows. Jason, are you on today?
So it looked like we might have our first challenge with Jason not yet logged in. So let me just jump in though on the iCount program to let everybody know that there is a new policy for new hires that just got put into place, which is a really good thing. That now as you come in, you can now opt into the protected veteran status and also acknowledge the visibility of that status, okay? Whereas before, everything was anonymous for the right reasons, but now as a new opportunity, we can now acknowledge that information can be shared, which I feel like is a good thing. So you've got this opt-in feature. If you go out to iCount, which has been out there for a while, I personally have done it. I think there's a value add for the company that if you identify as a veteran or the other 3 categories that are out there, that now there's visibility on that data by the company at the aggregate level, such that programs can be created and right policies can be adjusted and put into place based on the population that we have within the company. So I encourage everybody to do it. I've been out there, I've done it myself, indicated my veteran status. I have a level of disability. I've indicated that as well. So again, take that into consideration. And you can also go the step further by acknowledging it's okay to share this information such that there can be further outreach for you. So I think it's a great program. It's good for the company. It's good for us as a employee group. And it does good for the population that identifies within the company by allowing the company to target programs and efforts and initiatives that support that community there. So that's the insights on this new program that allows acknowledging that you're a participant in that. And I think iCount is a very valuable program overall for both the company and for internal populations that are in those categories. So Monty, back to you.
Thank you, Jeff, for filling in. Today and every day, you're not alone. We and many others are here for you. If you know of someone that is in distress, please know it's okay to ask for help. Today, you'll hear from Jeremy Keurig from Victory Gym. He is a peer support coordinator, a United States Marine veteran, a firefighter with 23 years of service. He is from Dearborn, Michigan, and is part of Michigan Crisis Response Association. He is certified in individual and group crisis intervention and has had training in mental health peer support. Jeff Cole is Chief Executive Officer of AT&T Veterans. He is a retired colonel from the Marine Corps, serving active duty and reserve duty for 30 years. Jeff has held his current position as Assistant Vice President in the Technology and Entertainment Group of AT&T since 2016. He has many, many years supporting AT&T Veterans Employee Resource Group in many different capacities and has been the CEO since January. Thank you each for joining, and we hope you'll find the information being presented today insightful and helpful. To get us started, we'd like to set the stage with 2 videos that will highlight our theme of You Are Not Alone. Please watch the first video, followed by the second.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good. But I have a story, and I don't know where to start.
I'm good. But I feel alone in the crowd.
I'm good. But nobody understands.
I'm good. Past keeps coming back.
But I can't get out of bed. And I can't sleep.
I'm good. But I feel overwhelmed.
I'm good, but I don't feel safe.
But I don't even know who I am anymore.
But I still have nightmares. But I don't need any help. I'm good. But I don't feel anything anymore.
Good. But I can't live like this anymore.
I'm really not so good. But are you ready to listen?
I'm good.
My name is Tom Schuler. I served in the United States Air
My
Force.
name is Paul Lilly, and
My
I
name is
served
Tracy
in the
Martin,
Army.
and I served in the
My name is
United
Reggie
States.
Levy,
And I served
in the
My name
United
is
States
Anna
Air
Torres,
Force.
and I served in the United States Marine Corps.
My name is Adam Corman. I served in the United States Army. When I got out, I didn't fit in.
Ever since I got out of the military, I've had a hard time trying to find people
Since
to
getting
relate
out of the
to.
military, I struggled to find my place.
You know, that transition out of the military was really difficult.
It was a struggle to find work.
It was tough finding a
I didn't
job.
know what I was going to do or who I was going to
I
be.
feel lost.
I feel lost.
I feel lost.
I feel so lost. With the pandemic, my life has changed
When the pandemic
completely.
hit, I lost everything.
I lost my job.
I lost my job.
People I love was getting sick.
I need help. And I don't know where
I
to go.
don't know what to do.
I had to leave my own home. Been sleeping on couches, in a garage.
I've never felt more alone.
I just feel alone.
Look around and realize you are not alone.
You can do this.
Things are changing.
Hey, I've got a job if anybody needs one.
I can pick up your groceries.
It's going to be okay.
Do you need a ride?
Anyone need
Does anyone need help?
I've got paper towels.
I got right.
You can do this.
It's going to be okay.
I've got your back.
I've got your back.
I've got
I've got
I got your back.
I got your back.
We
You
got
got
your
your
back.
back.
My name is Tom.
I want to thank the Veterans Media Fellowship, AT&T Veterans Media Fellowship, for the second video, and the VA for the first video. Jeff and Jeremy, please take it away.
Thanks, Monty. Appreciate it. So we thought those videos would resonate well here. And what we want to do with this forum on this session here as part of our Get Left of Impact series is look at both sides of this equation here. That there are veterans in the community that are having mental health challenges and other challenges, but also what is those advocates or family members or associates or peers, what's available to them also to get in the mix and assist and provide some responses and feedback. So our goal for this session here is to look at both sides, but also really get some information out there, some perspective out there, some reference material, such that everyone is willing to engage and not walk away from a scenario where maybe you could have jumped in and given an opportunity to assist here. So as Monty mentioned, AT&T Veterans is always looking at opportunities to share information, get that content out there, educate and work with nonprofits, other employee groups, and agencies on making an impact in the veteran community specifically. But you may not be aware, in general, May is Mental Health Month, and that's where the focus of this particular discussion is coming at, is on the mental health aspect, and we'll walk you through a little bit of context and background on connecting the dots here. So we also partner with other EGs such as League, Ability, Professional 50 Forward, Women of AT&T, Valor, and other nonprofits and organizations to get this message out. And so we hope to get this out in a way that's receptive to you and encourage engagement where it's appropriate and give you those techniques to actually do that. So looks like I just wanted to cover a little bit of background real quickly. AT&T is a big advocate of employee groups, and they've been a big advocate for veterans within the company as well. So for over 100 years, they've been supporting military personnel, veterans, and their families. That number needs to be adjusted. I apologize for that a little bit. With all the change that's going on recently, we're about 8,200 members within our ERG, and looking to continue to grow. The company has met their goal of 20,000 by 2020, hiring not only veterans, but veteran spouses and family members as well. There's been a big investment contributed to or directed to organizations and projects that support military veterans and their families, over $20 million. The Veterans ERG has been around for over 35 years, founded by a Vietnam veteran back in 1983. And the company also looks to take care of veterans and their families in the product lines that we offer and the discounts and offers that are out there available to the general public in the veterans community. So great backing by AT&T, and we're proud to be here advocating for being permitted to advocate for the things that we do in the veterans community. So next slide, Monty. I did want to just also show, just again, to set context on AT&T Veterans as an ERG. Our 4 pillars are heal, help, honor, and educate. This mental health and these at-risk factors and getting engaged with suicide prevention and awareness kind of span the heal, help, and educate areas. So broad impact there, and we're always looking to get this word out and partner, as I mentioned, in different nonprofits, EGs, ERGs, and organizations that are furthering that and looking to support veterans, their families within our communities. We want to collaborate across all our ERGs to get that information and word out and up our game in that support aspect. So next slide, Monty. I did want to take just a minute on our Get to Zero program. Okay, so it's a very big focus area for AT&T Veterans. Get to Zero is our activities and engagement efforts to make an impact in lowering that VA study that showed 22 veterans were committing suicide every single day. There's a recent study that came out that modified that a bit, that it's around 17 or 18, but any number of suicides are too many in our community and other communities. The other thing about the journey that we've been on with Get to Zero is there's lots of attributes and characteristics that come into play that may lead somebody to that ultimate decision of where they're feeling hopeless and decide to take their life. It spans multiple communities and multiple demographics. And again, I go back to that's why we're partnered with League, Professional 50 Forward, Ability, and these other groups and agencies, there's a kind of a Venn diagram going on where these attributes impact multiple communities. Our focus is on the veterans area, but we want to share and learn from these other communities that also are impacted by those attributes. So our Get to Zero logo shows 22 down to 0. That's our goal. That's what we're working for, is to make an impact on lowering and ultimately getting to 0 suicides. Getting left is another term that you'll hear, and that's what this series is for getting this information out. Getting left means be proactive. So we want to get in front of that impact event, whatever it might be. And with these other attributes that come into play, you see some of them up here on the dog tag with depression, joblessness, homelessness, mental health is in there. It's an at-risk factor, okay? And so as you start getting additive on those at-risk factors, that takes someone down a path, could be a veteran, other community, to that situation again that I mentioned, where maybe they end up on that hopeless path and make a decision to take their life. We want to get up front of that. We want to make an impact early on, identify where we can jump in and assist. And that's what Jeremy's going to be talking to a little bit about today, is how we get up front, what kind of frameworks can we look at and engage with those service members that might be experiencing some of these at-risk factors. So the overall campaign for our mental health efforts is, borrowing from NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, is you are not alone, okay? And so the journey's not alone. You heard from those video clips there that we led into, that when you get others involved, or when there's outreach from an impacted veteran or other that maybe I'm not quite so well, we need to get involved. I want to encourage you to get involved and see how you can assist and use a framework to move that veteran or other at-risk person to somebody that's an agency or a group that can provide some assistance and some help. We want to give you those tools that you can use to feel confident and engage with somebody that's experiencing or demonstrating those behaviors and attributes. Okay, so just again, a little bit of level setting, and then we'll move into the dialogue with Jeremy. Some stats and context here that this mental health affects every demographic. There is no barriers or lines that come into play here. So 19% of US adults have an anxiety disorder. Mental illness affects every community that's out there. You see the stats there. Also, more than 1.7 million veterans have received treatment in a VA mental health specialty program in fiscal year 2018. Unfortunately, suicide has been on the increase and continues to be on the increase at large in the US since 2001. And mental illness is a large contributor to that ultimate situation there. So now more than ever, it's important for us to identify those mental health attributes with the community and the public to get them engaged. And then also the situation with COVID here recently, as we can all relate to, presents a big challenge and puts another layer on there, if you will, as to what needs to be considered with that isolation aspect and not being able to get out and do some outreach there. And then lastly, on the right side there, I just wanted to show some VA stats that year over year, this is from 19 to 20. The bottom one currently is what's posted out on the VA sites right now, where you can just see the numbers year over year going up, going up. One positive to that is there's more engagement, there's calls coming in, there's more chats, there's more texts, right? So that outreach from the impacted person seems to be, that messaging seems to be getting through, that there is help and assistance there, and that you are not alone, they are not alone, and that there's available resources to help them. I just want to include a quote too from our Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer, Corey Anthony, that this is an important opportunity to recognize the reality of mental illness. by acknowledging that it impacts so many of us, we begin to remove the stigma and empower one another to seek support. So I thought that was a great quote, and ties in with what we have going on here and the information that we're trying to get out. And we're going to talk about stigma also as one of the attributes as we go through on our mental health journey here with you. So with that, let's move into the dialogue and get Jeremy sharing some of his background and interactions and his expertise that comes along to play. So welcome, Jeremy. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you joining us for this session here.
Jeff, Monty, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be a part of your initiative.
So I wanted to start it off with, just how important is mental health to overall physical health? I know you're involved with veterans and others at Victory Gym, but with the PTSD peer support and others that you do a lot of sessions with veterans and others. How important is the mental health aspect to your overall physical health and well-being?
It's a very big part. Your mental health affects pretty much everything you do. It's related to your relationships, your work. There's not an aspect of your lives that are not affected by it. And in the long term, it does have an effect on your physical being, whether it be the shape you're in, your diet, your health, the lack of sleep, and those types of things. So it is in a sense, everything is connected in one shape or form or another. And when one part of when there's one issue, then it turns into a snowball effect if that issue is not addressed. And before you know it, it could evolve into some type of crisis situation.
Yeah, that kind of ties back into those at-risk factors that we were looking at just a little bit earlier there. It turns into, as you mentioned, that snowball effect. It starts getting to be additive. And that's where you start getting down a path that could be challenging to overcome on your own. So how about there's a phrase that's been thrown around here lately that's coming out of this COVID situation, which is quarantine fatigue. So not being able to get them get folks into an area as a group. How are you working with that particular scenario, and what insights might you offer on that quarantine fatigue, if you will, in the midst of this?
Well, it's human nature. Most of us don't deal with change too much. And the COVID-19 situation has been extremely significant in how it affects our daily lives and our daily routines. In regards to the quarantine fatigue type issues, we've come out with many initiatives, whether it be the firefighters, the general public, the veterans organizations, in regards to what can we do with the limited resources that we have when the things that we're used to utilizing on a regular basis to burn off some steam, to help us out, to help our mental health, our physical health. One of the biggest things you can do is try to stay busy with what you have. Regardless of whether you are married, have a family, you need to look at those things of what you do on a daily basis. How can you adapt? How can you do those things around the house? Communication is huge. This Zoom meeting right here, up until just recently, and the kids doing Zoom school, I had never heard of it. That is a very good resource for connecting. It is that lack of connection with other people. Yes, it's a wonderful thing to spend more time with your family, but it's human nature to have to associate with other people and get out there. So taking into effect what we have with us on a daily basis, in a sense, counting our blessings. What can we do to increase our relationships with our family, with our friends during quarantine? Utilize the social media that we have, utilize the technology that we have, our FaceTiming, our Zooms, even just a simple phone call. Get back to writing letters, get back to writing your thoughts on a regular basis. The main thing is staying busy, trying not to watch the news on a regular basis. That is huge. That will depress anybody, unfortunately. Yeah. So looking at the highlights, looking at the positives, staying busy, and also whoever you're friends with, your spouses, your close relationships, bounce ideas off of them. What can we do? Work as a team together, whether it be your family, your colleagues, your coworkers, and come together and try to find some things that you can do that'll battle that fatigue.
That's right. Even so, yeah, as you mentioned, some low-tech things out there, a phone call, right? So just getting on the phone and chatting. So getting out of that isolation, if you will, a little bit of outreach. And likewise, for those, reach out to others and engage. So a phone call or a letter, a card, how are you doing? Some outreach like that, very helpful. And I just wanted to let everybody know that's listening in that as we go through the questions that are being posed to Jeremy, we've got some reference and contact material in the background here. And so this COVID-19 resource and information guide comes from NAMI. We've got that link for you at the end of the deck here, which will be published out. So in the background, as Jeremy's chatting, we've just got some content and reference information that ties in with the questions that I'm teeing up for Jeremy. So, all right, thank you on that one, Jeremy. And let's go to the next question here. So how does the term category of mental health create a stigma? There's this perception of a stigma within the veteran community and other communities. Each community has a stigma, if you will, of that's can be positive or negative, but generally tends to be perceived as a negative perception. So can you talk a little bit about the mental health stigma that may come into play with the veterans community?
Unfortunately, more frequently than not, yes, the stigma it revolves around a negative fact that anybody who's experienced or is experiencing some type of mental health issue, albeit depression, PTSD, schizophrenia, any of those things are looked at in a negative way. And immediately it turns people's mindset into, this person may be broken. Can I rely on them? Are they not all there? Are they safe more than anything? Do I feel safe around this person? In the day and age where we have all these active shooter events, those types of things, the going postal, as one would say, automatically some people's mindset goes towards those. And it's unfortunate that they immediately go to the extremes in thinking of, and when they think of mental health situations, the stigma in regards to specific occupations, unfortunately, when it comes to seeking help in the veteran community, first responders, police, fire, corrections, those types of things, those are the people that are supposed to step up in dangerous situations. And unfortunately, throughout the years, the stigma was that if you have a mental health issue, you can't do your job. You're weak. We can't rely on you. And we know now more than ever that is totally against everything. It is not the truth. What it is a unreasonable or abnormal event that happens to somebody who's a person. And the term we like to use is it's a moral injury. And the moral injury affects everything in a person that they deem as being realistic and being whole and being good-natured, and that injury tends to affect everything we do on a daily basis. So that stigma prevents a lot of people from even researching or getting help or talking to people for the fear of the reputation that they may gain, or the fear of their coworkers, teammates, feeling that they cannot rely on them because of whatever mental health issue that they may be dealing with.
Yep, I agree. I think it goes both ways, that there's an internalized stigma that a veteran deals with, as well as what's the perception of others of me based on that stigma. And then others external also have that stigma of already stereotyping or categorizing somebody that they perceive might be impacted by whatever those events are that you just mentioned there. So we should all be working together to how can we stamp out that stigma, seek to understand, and where can we interject assistance and really get involved with removing those stigmas to move forward with the mental health aspects and growth, if you will. Okay, so if we could go now to what are some of those identifying signals and indicators, Monty, if you could move on, that everyone could be keeping an eye out for and looking for, such that as we move into the next question after this, we could maybe use a framework to get into. So can you talk about some of the things? There's going to be some that are subtle, some that are blatant, some that are obvious, but what are some of those identifying signals and indicators that you've encountered and that may be prevalent in the veteran community struggling with their mental health? Did we lose you, Jeremy?
I'm sorry. There we go. Oh, my apologies. My apologies.
Yeah.
So some of the things that are common that will cause a lot of these is anxiety, causing the anxiety effects of TBI, schizophrenia. There's sexual trauma, whether it be civilian world, the military, bipolar disorders, depression, post-traumatic stress. Those things, some are unfortunately brought on by specific events. Other things are also brought on solely by inheritance, unfortunately. And when you take into effect that you may inherit some type of things, you take on other events in your lifetime, it compounds, and those things tend to add up. And without seeking the proper outlet or reach out in therapy, those types of things, they build up. There's an accumulative effect, unfortunately, of whatever you've experienced. And even if it's something small, you keep adding that on, and it keeps building and building and building. And unfortunately, once that cup of tragic events or issues reaches its top of the cup, it overflows. And that's when a lot of things start to happen. That's when you start getting into your substance abuse. That's when you start having your suicidal ideology. That's when you get into your spousal abuse, those types of things. Whether it be drug addiction, inability to control your emotions, your anger levels, your jobs, though trying to maintain jobs, and those issues, as well as your relationships, it starts affecting those types of things. And things that people can recognize is your daily behaviors. Look at your coworkers on a daily basis, or your family members or your close friends. If something doesn't seem right, what is going on? That's when you have to start questioning yourself. What is their background? If you're aware of their background, was there any significant event? Were they prior military? Were they prior first responders? Those types of things. It's up to every individual to try to piece these things together. If you start noticing something's wrong, it has to be a team effort in order for us to go against to combat these types of issues.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned there and described, there's something that just doesn't feel right or is out of the norm that probably is more the more subtle indicator, right? That, hey, let me ask a few questions. Let me dig a little bit deeper and see where I might be able to interject and assist here. So there's definitely these, and I think you had mentioned this, early on as well, that there's these big high visibility situations where, okay, something's not right and might need some assistance. But I think for the most part, the overwhelming majority of the time, it's internalized and it's subtle things that you need to keep an eye out for, right? And it was in the video as well. It's just those subtle things where there's a little bit of change in mood or behavior that are cumulative indicators of where there's some outreach, and we need to be ready to receive those and be able to respond to those. So let's move into the next area there where there's a tie-in with this, and again, it's being able to recognize maybe those patterns and have that awareness. But what I want to move into, Monty, on the next slide, and Jeremy, is as a friend, peer, neighbor, partner, spouse, or concerned individual, what can observers do? So how can they help? And then, there's peer support groups that are out there, and I believe you all have a technique and a concept around that as well. So how can we tie that in together there? And what are some of the things that concerned individuals and observers of these characteristics or behaviors start to do and consider to assist that person that may be in need?
First and foremost, it's going to be resist the urge and the uncomfortable feeling of even considering that somebody might have an issue. It's human nature, once again, to feel a little bit uncomfortable to talk about these things. It's a huge misconception that if you blatantly ask someone, are you considering suicide, that you might in some way put that idea in their head. That has been proven totally false. If anything, you notice some changes in somebody and that is one of the most important questions you can ask them. Bluntly, blatantly, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Number one, it's showing that you care to begin with. And that might initiate a dialogue with that individual that may be all that they need. And at that point, once you start talking to that person, you can find out a little bit more of what's going on. And then you can start working on your different organizations in your outreach and in referrals of those types of things. So communication is the key. You have to ask. If something doesn't feel right, please, one way or shape or another, if you need to research it beforehand, if it's not a immediate crisis situation to where they're posting on social media, I want to hurt myself, or I want to kill myself, or I'm done. If you are not sure of yourself, by all means, utilize some of these organizations that you see here. We have Google's a wonderful tool. We can look up certain things if we're not sure how to talk to it. If you don't feel comfortable, by all means, try to find somebody that is close to that individual that they have a connection with that can ask those tough questions. But those questions need to be asked, and that's going to start that dialogue. And once that ball is moving, then we can start working with these other organizations and referrals and trying to find the specific help that that individual needs.
Great. Yeah. So good insights there. And I think that connectivity piece of it is a huge aspect as well. So making a connection one way or the other. It might be background wise or just as a friend and associate that you can make that connection. But that peer support group, there's a lot of that woven into these agencies here that are shown on that slide. And I think that's a really tight connection that you can leverage when you establish a good relationship with, just for how do you connect with that person that's in need and kind of expand on that a bit as you go through it to work through those tough questions and tough love, if you will. So, okay, on the next slide, let's go into that framework that we kind of mentioned there. So what can others do, right? We've touched briefly on that, but there's frameworks that are out there. VA has theirs. There's the Columbia Lighthouse Project, and then there's a framework called QPR. So what frameworks are out there, models, concepts, techniques that a person could educate themselves, study, and understand to help with that dialogue that you just mentioned, get that conversation started and be willing to engage with that at-risk person that's exhibiting those behaviors?
I'm personally familiar with the QPR. I've actually attended 2 of their courses, both prior to myself getting on the peer support team and afterwards as a team completely. We all went through the same training. The QPR is generally a 1 to 2 hour, depending on the number of students in the class, that teaches the lay public, the general public, on what to do in these situations. It's giving some feedback, some stats, some very basic information, and what to do if you're put in those uncomfortable situations. Most people are just not wired to deal with those types of things. And unfortunately, if nothing is done, that's when we start having the problems. So the QPR, as well as these other organizations, what they put out there is, if you're noticing things, once again, to reiterate, look, you may not want to get involved, but please, at some point, if you can't do it, you need to refer it to somebody else who can get involved, who is willing to get involved, who can help these individuals. And the information is everywhere out there. It's just a matter of taking the time and taking the initiative to do it. Remember, we're all in this together, and if we don't work at it together, we're going to lose more people, whether it be civilians, whether it be veterans. And that is the whole goal of this initiative, is to prevent that. So everybody getting on board, having a basic idea, either through QPR, the NAMI, these other projects out there, you will have general knowledge of where to refer somebody, what to say. God forbid that you're in one of those situations to where somebody's in a crisis situation that it's putting you, in a sense, in a very uncomfortable position to deal with.
Right. Yeah, and each of these frameworks look at these other attributes that we talked about, those at-risk factors earlier, and mental health being one of those. So I just wanted to keep that perspective in there, that mental health is an underlying at-risk factor that's within each of these frameworks. And these frameworks should help you feel more comfortable for that outreach and to show any impacted person that they are not alone. Okay, so next question we've got, and the final question, and try to get some questions from the audience in here. So for veterans who might be dealing with mental health challenges, what are some techniques that they might engage with to mitigate or eliminate their particular challenge? And can you speak to, if you encounter this online or on social media, what are some things that you might do? So I kind of tangled 2 questions in there. So what is it that a veteran doing might be able to help dealing with mental health challenges? What are some techniques they might engage with at a personal level, if you will? And let's talk about that, and then we'll move into the social media aspect of things.
On a personal level, there are some things that you can do on a regular basis. Number 1 is taking care of yourself, if at all possible. Whether it be getting enough sleep, easier said than done. One of the most common symptoms of people who are experiencing some type of mental health issue is going to be the lack of sleep, trying to get on a schedule, taking care of yourself physically and mentally. When you don't get enough sleep, it's a snowball effect. It starts affecting everything. So that's one of the first things that you should attempt to do, if at all possible. You're going to try to maintain a healthy diet, those types of things, get into exercise more often. What's gaining more and more recognition is yoga and mindfulness. That's another stigma that yoga itself, for years, it's a female thing. Not true at all. It is fine. There's science behind it of how yoga helps in so many different aspects when it comes to not only your physical health, but your mental health as well. And it's being pushed very, very hard amongst the veterans community and first responders. If there's anything you're going to get out of yoga, it's some time of quiet, some time to stretch, and you're going to feel better. If you choose to get a little with it, you'll find that there's many other things that you can gain from the yoga aspect. And your other question, sir, is that kind of...
Yeah, social media. So if you encounter or having a dialogue, say, or you see something on Facebook or some indicators in chat sessions or things like that, what are some steps that you can do? And I know each of these, the kind of the Facebooks of the world have policies for if you see this, but what can you do as an individual if you see, you know, I've been up for 48 hours, I've got a bottle of wine next to me, and my 45's laying there on the counter. What can you do, and what are some feedback on how to manage those type of situations?
Well, myself being on multiple different veterans websites, or excuse me, pages on Facebook, Instagram, those things, I've found myself in a couple of those situations to where a veteran was posting suicidal ideology, or in some way, shape, or form was leading to that. At the time, I was unaware that Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter actually have suicide prevention and processes embedded in the systems that you can click, and that they'll start working on that individual, contacting that individual and giving resources. That being said, if you were unaware of that, in my particular situation, I had to do a little Facebook stalking and try to find out where this individual was. Looking at pictures, if this is all available on there, I went as far as to try to look at a picture of where he might have been and contacted the local law enforcement agency and said, look, this is all the information I have. I'm very concerned that this individual is going to commit suicide. What can we do to try to help them out? Give them every bit of information, give them the name, what they said, and at that point, they can take it from there. Whether or not that individual is local, they can go do a welfare check and go check on that person. What we don't want you to do is absolutely nothing. Okay, and do whatever within your power, and that is just an option on social media.
Yeah, and so great feedback and inputs there and insights. And each of these major the players in the social media realm have policies around that, so that if you do encounter, you can follow those steps, and there will be outreach to that person just to follow up on. So. All right, great dialogue, great feedback, Jeremy. Really appreciate that. We've tried to connect the dots on multiple at-risk factors, the overall umbrella being mental health, but hopefully you can see where those other at-risk factors, along with mental health, when they become additive, that's when you start running into a challenge and potentially getting down that hopeless path. We want to get left of that, encourage people to engage, use these techniques, and let's each consider a commitment to understand mental health. Recognize it's not a journey everyone needs to handle alone. So see if we can end that silence around mental health and engage, use these techniques. And we've got in the deck as well, if you know someone you love is struggling, or aware of somebody that needs some outreach for internal employees, we've got AT&T's EAP that we can connect them with. And then there's National Suicide Prevention Lifelines and other agencies that we can get them connected to. So let's try to make a commitment to take that engagement head on, make an impact in the area of mental health and suicide prevention and awareness. So with that, Monty, I know we want to do a little bit of a placeholder at the very end for Jason Moses, who joined us, but let's see if we can get a few questions in there and maybe.
Hi, everybody. If you have questions, down at the bottom of Zoom is a Q&A link. please click that or raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question live. We'll stand by for a moment and see if any questions come in. We did have a couple of questions while people are teeing up on there. A couple of questions that came in. One of them to Jeremy. You talked a little bit about exercise helping with stress. What are some of the other steps that could help with the stress I'm feeling from being at home and the lack of being around people and just overall stressors? Do you have any guidance that may help those conditions?
Yes, Monty. As I stated earlier, one of the biggest ones, which is probably one of the most difficult to do, is try to get as much sleep as possible. On average, 6 to 8 hours of sleep is the optimum if you can even get that, but try to push for that. You want to try to maintain that healthy diet if at all possible. Try to stay away from your processed foods. Try to stay with whole foods. Try to eat on a regular basis. Along those lines, keeping with a schedule as best as possible. When you keep a schedule, it helps everything. It helps reduce stress in general when you're with a schedule and you do things on a regular basis and try to organize those things. Exercising as much as possible, especially right now during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's one of the things that has affected most people is the gyms being closed. Well, you can still get outside. You can still walk. You can do push-ups. You can do a lot of those different things out there. Practice the yoga, get into meditating, practice mindfulness. Once again, there's absolutely nothing bad that can come out of yoga. I'm a huge proponent of it, regardless if you have regardless of your age, your physical abilities, if you have injuries, they can adapt all those to each of those individual things and you will still get a benefit out of that. Identify a support system. You want to have your battle buddy if you're a veteran, or if you're seeing a therapist, you need a therapist, your best friend, a family member, anybody that you can confide in and go ahead and speak your thoughts and talk what's going on. If you keep that inside, that's when you start having those issues. So the system, the support system is going to be huge as well. Personal time. When we've all been pent up in this environment with our family members. Yes, we love our family members, but everybody needs their alone time, and you have to take that time for yourself, whether it be for a walk, whether it's just sitting in a room quietly, reading a book, a journal, anything that you can possibly do to in a sense recharge your batteries and just have some alone time is going to be very beneficial.
Yeah, great.
So Monty, let's go to Jason real quick and go back to his slide and let Jason jump in. Jason, are you there?
Let me get him unmuted.
Okay.
Jason, are you there now?
I am. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Good to hear.
Awesome. We got it. Thank you so much for allowing me even just a couple of moments to kind of briefly recap. Jeff, I want to thank you again for covering that initially. It's, we love how new technology is these days. We're still kind of working our way through this. It's the sign of the times, I know. And I also want to say that I truly feel, gosh, I think so impressed and honored that this conversation is even happening, because I think this is such an important cause, getting to zero, and the importance of just mental health awareness, not only just for everyone, but especially for our veterans and everything that they're going through. So I truly appreciate even being included, just to even kind of briefly talk about iCount on such a topic. But really quickly, I know a lot of this was kind of covered at the beginning, but I think the point I want to make realistically is that, it's veterans are truly an essential backbone of the AT&T workforce. And I do not think that we could be the leading edge technology company and innovator that we are today without that experience and drive that veterans bring to them when they join our company. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about iCount. It's a big promoter of diversity in the workforce, and that's a very near and dear cause to my heart. But with iCount, it's our way of understanding how we're doing. It's our dashboard, if you will, that we can see, are we doing enough to keep our veterans? Are we doing enough to give them the resources that they need? Are we doing enough to bring on new veterans that are coming into the workforce? You know, in order to get that accurate picture, we need every veteran to go out and identify. And the cool thing about opt-in is, you know, again, it's always about, are we doing enough for the veterans in our workforce? And what we were seeing was, you know, it's like the feedback we got was, yeah, I identified, that's great. But really, what's in it for me? And that's where opt-in came in. You know, we wanted to give something back to the veteran community in our workforce and say, that's fine. You know, we want to make sure that people feel protected. That's why, you know, your standard general count is anonymous. But if you want to participate, if you want to be recognized for your service, if you want to be included for future recognition and development opportunities and career progression opportunities, then all you have to do is opt in, because D&I is working tirelessly to develop an entire new program focused on truly kind of revolutionizing the veteran experience and being able to create something new and unique so that veterans can feel appreciated in our workforce. So as they do that, they need to be able to have the permission to reach out to people and to say, you know, if you opted in, great. Here are options that are available to you. We're building more. Are any of these of interest to you? Would you like to do more? And the only way you can do that is by opting in. We've got about 1,800 people right now that have done it just this year, which is fantastic. I would love to see that number grow, you know? And then the other thing I would say is that it's, you know, every employee will always manage the privacy. You will always say that, you know, you control who can and can't see it. You can change it at any point. Don't ever feel like, you know, it's a one and done, because it's not. And if you don't feel like you're getting enough out of it, you can opt out if you want. That's okay. You have that power. That's your control. I would also tell you that, you know, protected veteran is a very specific category for the government. So there are veterans who have served and who have been in our workforce for years that technically don't count as a protected vet anymore. And so now this is your chance to still to have that service that you did count and to still be included on these future promotions. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that, you know, we're really proud of opt-in. We think it's going to just be phenomenal this year as we continue to amp it up with D&I. But I'm always here for questions. I'm always here to answer anything on iCount, and I'm always here to help raise this number, because I truly, you know, we're so leading edge compared to our competitors. You know, the government has a goal of 5.5%. We're at 7.5%. I would love to see that number get more representative to 9 or 10, because I think that that's more reality. So I can't do it alone. Would love any help that I can get from our employee base or our ERGs. So again, I'm here with any questions, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jason. And we'll keep the visibility up and the messaging going out through our comms channels and encourage veterans to participate in the program. So thanks for taking the time to share with us. Okay, I'm going to wrap, Monty. So you saw that the list of content and references there. We want to get more out in front of you there, but hopefully you see that there's frameworks out there. Jeremy highlighted QPR. We listed a couple of others, so encourage you to educate yourself, get more comfortable with that outreach and get engaged, and let's all commit to providing that outreach such that nobody has to make that journey alone. We want to make sure that it's known that they are not alone, and as you heard in the opening videos, that we've got their back. So how can we help? How can we engage? It might be uncomfortable, but there's frameworks there to help get you through that. And so if you have questions, I'm cutting it a little bit short and we ran out of time. I apologize for that. Go out to the event site on T-Space or Get the Zero site and post your questions there into the comments, and we'll reply to each and every one of those. If you're external, go to the attveterans.org site and post your questions there. We'll respond to that as well. And then Jeremy, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day. Thanks for all that you do for that actual engagement through Victory Gym and through your PTSD coordinator experience and the like. We appreciate that so much. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, insights, and expertise with us, and we look forward to partnering with you.
Thank you, Jeff.
With that, Monty, I think we'll wrap here. Any closing remarks? I think we need to be off by in 2 minutes.
Thank you all. The video will be posted at attveterans.org and on the T-Space Get to Zero site. Again, questions, please put on T-Space or attveterans.org. Thank you, Jeremy and Jeff. Great call. Thank you for everybody that joined, and be looking forward to another one of these calls next quarter as we push towards getting to zero and ending veteran suicide. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Still says recording.
Monty, you want to hit stop record?